So, Midjourney version 5 just got released, and it's pretty exciting because there's a lot of differences between Midjourney version 5 versus Midjourney version 4. Now, if you are somebody that makes photorealistic, hyper-realistic looking images, you're gonna like this update because they have made some of the biggest changes to that sector, among other things. So let's get started and discuss the biggest changes in Midjourney version 5. Now, before we get started, make sure you subscribe and follow along for more. Okay, so the first big update is that hands are finally fixed. Well, not 100% of the time, but at least 80% of the time, hands turn out rendering looking alright. Previously in other Midjourney versions, we found hands to look kind of crazy. Sometimes you get like 6 fingers, sometimes you get like jumbled fingers or like long fingers, and things just look kind of out of place. But now with Midjourney version 5, it is generally pretty stable to get good looking hands. If you want to get good looking hands and somehow your thing turns out looking kind of weird like before, you could always just re-roll it, and generally you'll eventually get a proper looking hand with 5 fingers. Now, this was a big issue with older versions because hands really turned out weird, and one of the big arguments that everyone had online about AI images was that you can tell because the hands are really strange. Fortunately, Midjourney saw that and they're like, okay, we're going to fix this issue. So they changed and made improvements to the hand generations. Now, the second big update is the aspect ratio. Now, aspect ratio used to be just limited to 3:2 and square. So as Midjourney version 4 came out, there really was only a couple variations that you can do based off 3:2 and the square aspect ratio. And then they started improving it. And then now with Midjourney version 5, you're basically pretty free to do whichever aspect ratio you want. Now, of course, you can't go super crazy with it and just expect it to do some crazy 1000:1. But if you're within reason, then it ends up being able to work with what you give it and come out with a pretty decent image. Although if you want the best renders, it is better to stick with the ratios that are default and have been proven over the last few generations, which are doing it 3:2 or 2:3 or 1:1. Now, the next update too is that they have now clarified that using sentences in a way that describes your image more, like what your prompt in your head is actually gonna help the model come up with better renders. So no longer are the days of using just scattered words, but instead having descriptive words in a sentence that is more cohesive, so the language model is able to understand what you're trying to say. And if it understands what you're saying, it's gonna be more able to generate an image that is more in line with what you have in your head. Now, finally, the last one, which is really exciting, is that Midjourney has now come up with a lot of improvements for the realistic images. Before, you did already saw really realistic looking photographs, realistic looking renders, but now you're gonna have even a harder time to tell whether something is AI or real because it improved that much. For example, check out these images. Right? It's pretty crazy. It looks really real. Okay, that's it for the updates with Midjourney version 5 coming from Midjourney version 4. Let me know what you think. Let's start a conversation, and I'll see you in the next video.